about?
They might do that next. They might actually do that next.
Where are they getting all these?
Yeah. Actually, they do. Who pays for the hotels that they're staying at in New York City, in Chicago? Well, who's paying for those hotels? Who's paying for that room and board?
I imagine there's probably federal money allocated to people.
And where does the federal government get its money?
From the,
U.S.
from the U.S. Treasury? Sure, yeah.
U.S. taxpayer. So you are paying for illegal immigrants' housing. Thank you very much.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am so glad you are here for this one. So this is a clip from a live debate between Owen Shroyer and Destiny, where they go head-to-head on everything from government spending to illegal immigration to whether or not your tax dollars are funding things you never agreed to. And let me tell you, Owen came with receipts on this one, because there is a moment in here where he asks one simple question, and his opponent has absolutely nowhere to hide. You are definitely going to want to stay for that. But hey, before we get into it, drop a comment and let me know where you are tuning in from. I always love seeing how far this community reaches it. Genuinely makes my day. All right, let us get right into it.
First of all, what cities are so expensive to live in? Democrat-run cities. And again, he talks about redistribution.
Is this the open?
You talk about redistribution again.
When those cities are expensive, do you acknowledge that those cities produce more economic output for the country than all the red cities? This is what I mean when I say these people don't live in reality. But like, why can't you acknowledge that? Because you'll very quickly say things like, oh, well, there are more homicides in Chicago. Yeah, there's more people that live in Chicago, and Chicago is what makes Illinois all its money. That's where the money comes from, or the blue cities. It's not just blue states that subsidize the existence of red states, which is true. And by the way, all of those governors were so happy for the American Rescue Plan when Biden was there to hand out money to shore up their budgets. But then when you want to talk about expenses and living and all these other things, now you want to talk about how blue cities need to be held responsible, but you don't give them credit for the economic output? It's insane.
It's a nice deflection. So Democrat cities are the most expensive to live in, so I'm glad you at least acknowledge that. And again,
more expensive to live in the U.S. than Uganda as well, right? It is, right?
So you can always volunteer to pay more, all right? If you want to redistribute wealth, you can be the hero, man. You can empty your bank account right now, but I bet you don't. I bet you're actually living pretty rich. I bet you do pretty well. And you want to bring up the Constitution. The Constitution actually states when the United States government becomes corrupt, it's our duty to reform the government. That's actually
what article
in the Constitution.
Clause is that? Is to terminate,
Second
suspend
of all,
the rules
you can
of
read
Constitution?
it again.
Which Constitution are we talking about?
We live in a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy.
What is the contradiction there? What do you think? Hold on. What is a republic and what is a democracy?
A democracy is where a bunch of lunatics like you can vote away my rights. A democracy is where 3 wolves and a sheep vote what's for dinner.
Is that Article 5 or Article 6? I don't know what part of the Constitution.
So you asked what a democracy was.
So a democracy is when multiple people vote. A republic is when you have representatives that do things for you. We are a representative democracy. That's why we're a constitutional republic. We are both a republic, which just means you're not a monarchy, and a democracy. This idea that we must be a republic because I'm a Republican and we're not a democracy because you're a Democrat is fucking retarded. Come on.
So again, we live in a constitutional republic where we have unalienable rights given to us by God, the Creator. Democrats don't want you to know that because they want to be able to vote away your rights, like they want to be able to vote away your Second Amendment rights, vote away your First Amendment rights, and they'll go right down the line, okay? So that's why these people love democracy, because they want to be able to vote away your rights.
Are we talking about abortion that we lost to a conservative Supreme Court? Are we talking about the Second Amendment when Donald Trump did the bump stock ban? I'm sorry, how were your gun rights attacked under Biden?
It was a bad ban.
And they came under Donald Trump, so why would he be the guy, no offense, but a liberal from New York, which is what Donald Trump is, that's the guy that you want defending your gun rights?
So you now have the President of the United States and the Vice President and the next would-be Vice President, Tim Walz, have all said they want an assault weapons ban, okay? What even is an assault weapon? Can you tell me?
A scary big black rifle that Democrats have been crying about for 30 years. They haven't banned it yet. I don't think they're going to ban it in this administration.
Very intellectual. By the way, what is a rich person's fair share?
What is a rich person's fair share? I think that the level of taxation should match appropriately the spending that we want from our federal government. Also, the reason what you asked me an assault rifle, there is no definition for an assault rifle. I acknowledge that. I don't want to ban assault rifles. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris both owned firearms. Walz is a hunter. When was the last time you saw Trump with a firearm? I watched Roseanne, it was Roseanne, I think, with a firearm, right? Where she almost killed herself on a Twitter video with one? Jesus Christ.
So what, in the Bill of Rights, where is abortion mentioned?
Do you want to get into the constitutional legal construction of the penumbra of rights that are invoked when you try to get like the right to privacy out of the 14th?
You claim there's a right to an abortion. It just doesn't exist.
I didn't claim there was a right to an abortion. Technically, the abortion right comes from a right to privacy, but we'd have to go over Casey and Roe, and I'm sure that you're not familiar with any of those Supreme Court cases, or probably any Supreme Court case. But the reality is that before you had a protected right to seek an abortion. Now you don't. Republicans took that from you. Before you had the right to own a bump stock, Donald Trump banned bump stocks through executive action, by the way.
Which lost at the Supreme Court.
Which what?
Lost at the Supreme Court.
Well, that hasn't stopped him in the past from going back over and over again to try to get cases tossed or to try to get favorable rulings.
Hey man, I don't live in a cult. I said I have disagreements with Donald Trump. So you can attack me on Trump's policies that I disagree with. That's not a win for you.
This is what happens when someone actually comes prepared to a debate. Owen walks into this exchange and immediately flips the script on the entire cost of living argument. Here is the thing people on the left never want to address. They will cry all day about how expensive everything is, but then you ask them one simple question. Which cities are the most expensive to live in? And the answer is always the same, blue cities, every single time, and Owen made sure to point that out. He said Democrat cities are the most expensive to live in, so I am glad you at least acknowledge that. Simple, clean, undeniable. And what did his opponent do? He tried to pivot to economic output. Oh, well, those cities produce more GDP. Cool. That does not help the single mom in Chicago who cannot afford groceries. That does not help the young couple in Los Angeles who will never own a home. GDP on a spreadsheet does not pay your rent. Owen saw right through it and fired back with one of the most underrated lines in this entire exchange. He said you can always volunteer to pay more. If you want to redistribute wealth, you can be the hero. You can empty your bank account right now. And you know he is not going to do that. Nobody who preaches redistribution ever volunteers to go first. That is the biggest hypocrisy on the modern left. Then the conversation shifts to firearms, and Owen asks a question the left has never been able to answer in 30 years. He said, "What even is an assault weapon, can you tell me?" And the response was basically a scary-looking rifle. That is not a legal definition. That is an emotional reaction. You cannot write laws restricting constitutional rights based on how something looks. And then he hits him with another unanswerable question. What is a rich person's fair share? No number, no framework, just vibes. You want to raise taxes but cannot even tell me what the target is? That is not policy. That is a bumper sticker.
I agree I can't win attacking you on Trump's policies because he has none. I mean, what am I mean, yeah, what can you give me what is one Trump policy that he's running on besides 20% tariffs?
Secure border.
That's not a policy. That's like
taxes.
an idea. That's the concept of an idea of a policy.
Stopping war.
Okay.
What are Harris' policies that are so great?
Well, the three that she listed immediately is she wanted to give a $50,000 rollover deduction to new startups for small businesses. So
that was Trump's idea?
What?
Trump did that.
Maybe he should have spoke it. I don't know if he's too senile now or he's lost the ability to do it. What?
You just weren't watching.
I was watching. Unfortunately, I watched too much Trump. That was one. The second thing she wanted to do was expand the child tax credit, which was incredibly successful under Biden.
Also a Trump policy.
It wasn't. That's why it happened under Biden. And it's why the Republicans initially fought against it. Are we going to say that pre-existing conditions in the ACA was a Trump policy now as well? I know that he wants to take care of that one. And then the third thing that Kamala Harris said is she wanted to do a $15,000 first-time home buyer credit to people that were buying homes for the first time. Donald Trump said he wanted
for illegal immigrants.
How does I'm so curious. How do you think these tax credits work?
You do realize that they give money to illegal immigrants to buy houses?
I don't think you know how any of this works because I think you were probably born a rich kid and you never bought a house on an FHA loan before. So I had a tax credit when I bought a house. The way that these work is you apply for these refundable tax credits when you get them at the end of the year when you've qualified for them. An illegal immigrant definitionally doesn't file taxes because they don't have social security numbers. They don't get money back from the government. So how would an illegal immigrant qualify for a tax credit? Again, this doesn't make any sense. It's like the hurricane machines.
I agree. It doesn't make any sense. This is the Democrat policy. I completely agree. It doesn't make any sense at all. So
where are these lazy people that are coming over and not working and not getting jobs, getting the money for homes?
The U.S. government.
They pay them for the homes too? Then why even give them the tax credit? Why not just give them the homes outright?
Don't give them any ideas. They might do that next. They might actually do that next.
Where are they getting all these?
Yeah. Actually, they do. Who pays for the hotels that they're staying at in New York City, in Chicago? Well, who's paying for those hotels? Who's paying for that room and board?
I imagine there's probably federal money allocated to people.
And where does the federal government get its money?
From the, I mean,
U.S.
from the U.S.
taxpayers.
Treasury, sure, yeah.
U.S. taxpayer. So you are paying for illegal immigrants' housing. Thank you very much.
Illegal immigrants staying in apartments and hotels temporarily is not them buying homes with a tax credit. This is like saying we can do cloud seeding, therefore we've created hurricanes for attacking the United States. You see that it's a mott and belly. It's not the same at all.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, of course. I've been telling Republicans that since the 2020 election, and they still haven't.
This is a good opportunity. Anything that you want to bring up during the open dialogue, Stephen?
Yeah, do we acknowledge that Trump probably lost 2020? Have we gotten over that yet, or?
No, I don't want to relitigate that, but I would be happy to show you the results on the graphs where at 3:30 in the morning in 4 states, Biden's votes go straight up. Is that normal?
No, it's not normal.
So what do you think that is?
I think that just like every single person before the election said, there was an unprecedented amount of mail-in voting.
And they were all for Biden.
And this is where Owen proves he is not what they try to paint him as. Because one of the biggest weapons the left uses against conservatives is the cult accusation. Oh, you just blindly follow your guy. You do not think for yourself. And Owen shut that down cold. He said, I do not live in a cult. I have disagreements. That is what intellectual honesty looks like. You can support a movement and a set of values without worshiping every single decision. That is called being a thinking adult. And the fact that his opponent could not even process that tells you everything about how the other side views political support. To them, it is either total obedience or you are the enemy. There is no middle ground. But then the exchange gets really interesting. Stephen starts listing policies that are supposedly groundbreaking, and Owen catches it immediately. The small business deductions already existed. The child tax credit expansion already happened under previous leadership. So you are repackaging someone else's homework and calling it innovation? That is not a platform. That is a copy and paste job with a new cover page. And then we get to the moment that made this entire segment worth watching. Owen asks a devastatingly simple question. He said, who pays for the hotels that they are staying at in New York City and Chicago? Who is paying for those hotels? And you can see Stephen trying to navigate around it. He knows exactly where this is going. Eventually, he has no choice. He says it. U.S. taxpayer. And Owen just closes the door. So you are paying for illegal immigrants' housing. Thank you very much. This is why simple questions are the most dangerous weapon in any debate. You do not need a 30-minute lecture. You just need one question that cannot be dodged. And when the answer comes out of their mouth, it hits 10 times harder than if you said it yourself. This technique actually has a name. It goes back over 2,000 years to ancient Greece. Socrates never told anyone they were wrong. He asked questions until they arrived at the truth themselves. And Owen just gave a textbook demonstration right here.
A lot of them were. Did you
Of
not
course.
listen? Yeah,
Of course
well,
they were.
Of course they were.
And they all came right at 3:30 in the morning.
Because Donald Trump spent a year in the lead up telling his people, don't vote via mail-in ballot.
You are so
Do you remember
gullible,
that
man.
happening? Did you watch Donald Trump for a year
You are
say,
so
we don't
gullible.
vote via mail-in ballot, we go to the polls and vote? And you know why he did that? We know why he did that. Because Roger Stone and Manafort, two corrupt lunatics that Donald Trump has both given full pardons to, by the way, are on recorded audio saying Donald Trump is just going to declare himself the victor on the night of the election because he knows he's going to get destroyed when the mail-in ballots start coming.
And
he knew
did
that
Donald
because
Trump
he told,
declare himself the victor, or did he leave the White House?
Do what?
Did Donald Trump leave the White House?
After a failed insurrection, yes.
A failed insurrection. Who ran the insurrection?
Donald Trump and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and everybody that broke into the Capitol and delayed the certification of the vote.
Do you really believe that?
Was the vote certification delayed?
What is an insurrection?
Wait, was the
Hold on,
vote
hold
was
on.
the no
What
no no
is an
wait, was
insurrection?
the vote certification delayed on January 6th?
No, it went through. They certified. Did Trump? Did Trump?
Hold on, I'm so sorry. I don't know who you're answering right now. Was the vote certification delayed? Was Congress called out of session on January 6th?
Yes, I think for a couple hours.
For several hours.
So by the end of the day,
why were they called out of session?
So by the end of the day,
You see how we can't live in reality? You see how this doesn't work? The country doesn't function when you have people
If you want
that
to go
refuse
back
to
and call
accept.
this an insurrection,
The craziest thing is it's all on video. We've seen all of this.
so
None of this is a mystery.
Tell
right?
me what an insurrection is. Just define it for me.
I don't have to define it for you. I'm just asking simple questions. On January 6th, there was a certification of the vote. That vote was disrupted by violence. If you want to get into what an insurrection is, you could say that it was a crowd of people that had gathered with a common purpose to use the means of violence or intimidation to disrupt an official federal proceeding, such as the certification of the 2020 vote, the outcome of that election, which is why it would probably qualify as an insurrection.
Okay. How many guns were at this insurrection?
You don't need a gun for an insurrection.
Zero.
Zero? Wait, the cops didn't have any guns?
Oh, the cops had a gun. That's right. They killed an innocent
so
person.
So what you just said was just
That's
wrong.
right. They killed an innocent person.
With a slingshot? What do you mean there were 0 guns at the insurrection?
So, okay, so the government had the guns. So that's good. So that's what happens when only the government has the guns.
Just to be clear here, none of the people on the grounds of the Capitol had any firearms on them?
No, not a single one.
Really? Not even though the Secret Service said 80% of the people that were at the Ellipse just an hour earlier listening to Trump's speech didn't go through the magnometers because they saw people in the crowd that had firearms they didn't want to go through that all marched to the Capitol building. What, did they drop their gun off at a hotel? Did they give it to a friendly police officer?
Not
did they find a fellow DC BLM guy to hold onto their rifles?
Not a single gun was ever recovered or on record at the January 6th insurrection.
Oh, recovered.
And what type of an insurrection?
How many pipe bombs were found
That's a great question, actually. Who laid those pipe bombs?
We don't know. We never found out.
We don't know. How convenient. The government can recognize somebody's earlobe in a video and track them down and go arrest them in the middle of a hurricane, by the way. The FBI went into North Carolina in the middle of a hurricane and arrested somebody, but they can't find who laid the pipe bombs. They have no idea.
You have to understand something about how debates are actually won and lost. It is not about who talks the most. It is not about who sounds the most academic or who can rattle off the most statistics. It is about who asks the questions that cannot be answered. And in this final stretch, Owen does something brilliant. He strips away all the emotional language and all the media framing and just asks bare bones, factual questions. He said how many firearms were present at this so-called armed uprising? And the answer is 0. Not one. Not a single one was ever recovered or placed on record. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. For years, you have been told by every major network and every talking head on television that this was one of the most dangerous moments in the history of this country. And yet, when you ask the single most basic question about actual evidence, the entire premise crumbles. Owen is not even making an argument here. He is literally just asking you to look at what is documented. And that is what makes it so effective. Because when you pull back the curtain of emotion and just look at what actually happened on the ground, the story does not match the headline, and then Owen pivots to something that should honestly bother every person watching this regardless of political alignment. He brings up the pipe bombs. He said who laid those pipe bombs? We do not know, we never found out. And then he makes a point that is so sharp it is genuinely uncomfortable to hear. He said the government can recognize somebody's earlobe in a video and track them down and arrest them in the middle of a natural disaster, but somehow they cannot identify who planted explosive devices near federal buildings. Let that sit for a moment. We live in arguably the most surveilled civilization in human history. There are cameras on every street corner, facial recognition technology that operates from satellite imagery, cell phone tracking that logs your movements by the minute. The intelligence apparatus of this government is the most advanced and well-funded operation on the planet. And somehow this one individual just evaporated into thin air. No arrest, no identification, no resolution. Years later and still absolutely nothing. That is not a partisan talking point. That is a fundamental question about transparency and accountability that every single citizen should be demanding answers to regardless of who they voted for. What Owen did throughout this entire segment is something most people never figure out when they step behind a podium. He did not try to outtalk his opponent. He did not get dragged into emotional screaming matches. He kept asking simple, devastating questions and let the answers do all the damage. That is how you actually move the needle. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.